This year, on November 11th of 2018, we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of l'Armistice. L'Armistice was the end of the fighting of World War I. It was signed on 11th of November 1918 at Rotonde. Rotonde is a village in L'Oise, in the north of France. And this is only the end of the fighting. The peace was signed on June 28th, 1919. And the armistice is what we're celebrating this week. Today, I'm not going to do a history lesson about the war or the armistice either, because this is not my area of expertise. But I want you to explore fascinating French resources about la Première Guerre Mondiale. That's really the goal. The goal is not the episode itself, it's for you to go and explore fascinating French resources about this topic. As usual, you can download the full lesson on communefrancaise.com. You will find all the links to all the resources mentioned in the episode. So today, more than ever, go and get it. You just have to leave your first name and email to get the PDF of it so you can explore the resources as you wish and when you have some time. Bonjour, c'est Géraldine. Bienvenue sur Comme une Française. C'est parti. First, I researched some interesting resources for you about visiting France and the places that are linked to World War I. So, the site that I liked the most was one called Les Chemins de Mémoire. Okay, so you will find the link below the video. Les Chemins de Mémoire means the path to memory. And what's so interesting, especially for you, because if you're watching this, I assume you're not French, it's that it has lots of resources by topic and by country. So, for example, there's a path in France that gives you museums and cemeteries and important places by country. For example, there's a path called Les troupes australiennes et néo-zélandaises en France pendant la Première Guerre Mondiale. I have to read this because I took some notes. So it gives you places that are related to soldiers coming from Australia and New Zealand in France and a bit of Belgium. And you can go and explore these places. Even if you don't come to France, if you have the opportunity to come and visit and this period of time is important to you, check them out. Even if you don't, they are very, very interesting places to explore because you can relate to people from your own past. You also have things about les troupes américaines, les troupes britanniques, and obviously lots of others who came to France and Belgium to fight during the First World War. So there are parcours, as we call them, paths by country, they're by topics, there are lots of different options, and it's absolutely fascinating. The second area of resources I wanted to tell you about is les documents d'époque. The documents d'époque are resources and documents that are from this period. And this is what fascinates me the most, I have to say, because I love how we can relate to photos and prints, even propaganda. You always wonder, how did you convince someone to go to war? That's huge. So on the site called Le Centenaire, so that's just like Chemin de Mémoire, it's an official site, so it's true. I'm not a historian, but I assume that these are true facts and true documents from there. It's very well organized, and you have plenty of information on those topics, and it's all in French, so you can practice your French. So on the site called 14-18 Mission Centenaire, it means we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of it. You have une frise chronologique documentée. Une frise chronologique documentée. So, if you don't know anything about the First World War in France, because this is about France, you can check out this one because I think it's around 10 to 15 dates. I can't remember, I checked that yesterday. You have documents and an explanation, and this is very useful if you don't know much about it, like I do, or you have children you want to talk about, this kind of thing. It's made for teachers, so it's very easy to understand. And as you might know, if you're following me on Instagram, I love things that are for children because very often they're extremely well explained. So I'd rather go to these kind of things than go to adults' posts that are very, very complicated and not user-friendly at all. So that's for the time period. You can check different dates. Then what's most interesting in this site of centenaire.org is that you have lots of photos and documents from this period. And one of my favorite things in the world is La Collection Albert Kahn. So this man was a banker, and he sent photographers and people with cameras all around the world to take pictures of people, of places, to document what life was abroad. And I love it because we can relate to that, and we can see how people were dressing, what they were eating, even their body language. And that's very interesting. So for La Collection Albert Kahn relates to that because he did a big research on migration during the First World War. Because as you might imagine, a war doesn't just imply the people who are fighting, but the people who are escaping a war, people who are impacted by it in many, many different ways. And there were migration, not just in France, because people had to go and escape places where they were fighting, and people who were also from other areas of the world, Europe as well, and they had to move to different places. So that also puts everything in perspective compared to what's happening now, because that's not new at all. And it's very often the fault of people who are actually fighting. So it puts everything into context. And because we have photos, we can very easily relate to that. What I love as well, I'm going to say that all the time in this episode, is they're also things by topics. So you can type keywords. They have to be in French, unfortunately, but I picked links for you. Is that you can have lots of documents about l'engagement des femmes pendant la Grande Guerre. La Grande Guerre, the big war, is the French name for the First World War. That's very hard for me to say. So they did kind of research on this topic itself, but if you type women, you will find lots of documents on that topic. So I picked that for you because even though we assume that it's just a white man's war, it's not. And women were involved. It had a big influence on them as well. And I don't know if you know that, but the war had a big influence on women's life in Britain, and I think in the US as well, in terms of vote, but French women did not. We had to wait until 1945, which is almost 20 years later, and a full war later to get the vote. So that made a difference between what women could expect between France and other countries such as Britain, which was just a few kilometers away. Also, as I said, it didn't just involve white men, it also involved people from the colonies around the world, because we had Britain and we had France involved, and Belgium as well. So it's interesting to see other people who don't look like what we expect from history book be involved in the war. So again, lots of pictures, lots of documents showing you why they were involved, what was promised, and what they looked like, and everything else. So this is a big topic called Les colonies pendant la Première Guerre Mondiale. Les colonies pendant la Première Guerre Mondiale. You will get the link below the video on the blog. Very, very interesting, especially now where we're rethinking history, I think, and we have lots of documents to back what we're talking about. The third area of resources, French resources I want to tell you about is des reportages, okay? Des reportages are explanations of what's happening, so it's different from documents, because documents are just original content with explanations. Un reportage articulates facts. So the first one I would recommend you watch, if you're interested into that, is C'est quoi l'armistice de 1918? Un jour, une question. It's a very short one. It's 1 minute 42 seconds. And in there you have all the vocabulary needed to talk about l'armistice. So if you happen to be a French teacher or you have children learning French, it's very good because it's short and to the point, and it's made for children. But again, if you're an adult like me and you're interested in understanding in a fun way, it's a very good resource. It's made by France Télé, okay, so that's a national television. They have lots of topics, but for this kind of topic, I highly recommend you watch it because you have all the facts and all the vocabulary at hand, and it's very easy to understand. For example, in terms of vocabulary, one I didn't mention was la der des der. La der des der, just like la Grande Guerre, is a word we use to talk about this war. And der is short for dernière. La der des der is la dernière des dernières, the last war of the wars we can do, okay? Because they didn't expect it to happen again. So that's why we call it this way. Another resource that is always something I always recommend students watch, children included, and I watch when I want to get some proper knowledge about a topic I know nothing about, is C'est pas sorcier. C'est pas sorcier is a 20 maybe plus year old program that is extremely famous in France. I've watched it all my life. I still watch very old episodes when I want to know more about a topic I like. So for this topic, I picked the one about la guerre de 14-18. C'est pas sorcier sur la guerre de 14-18. You will find the link below the video. You have all the facts about this war with the French perspective, obviously, and you understand what happened and when. This is longer, it's around 20 minutes, but again, you have all the vocabulary. It's very well done. It's one of the best resources in French about any topic, so it's fantastic for students of French. If and only if you are a history nerd and you want to go deeper on that, the other resource I recommend in terms of reportage is Nota Bene. Nota Bene is a channel on YouTube that's made by a man called Benjamin Briot. He's a fantastic man doing history videos. I absolutely love his content. He's extremely precise, so it's very, very much for history nerds who can understand some French. So he did different series. He did a big series about la Première Guerre Mondiale avec le CNC. That was a partnership with the French establishment in France. So you will find the link below the video. So that's a huge series of videos about different points, very precise points about this war. And again, because I think we should not whitewash history, he did a very interesting episode about les troupes coloniales pendant la Première Guerre mondiale. So again, a very interesting topic that is not mentioned enough, that you can find on the link below this video. And at last, something that he did recently for the 100th anniversary of it is a series with I think it was La Somme, a partnership with a place in France. And there's one that I highly recommend, is called Comment vit un soldat de la Grande Guerre à l'arrière du front. Comment vit un soldat de la Grande Guerre à l'arrière du front. And he filmed it in Amiens. Amiens is a city in France with the cathedral. And what I really liked that surprised me is that he shows documents of this period, of the inside of la cathédrale d'Amiens. And you can see how they protected it from inside. And again, it's very unexpected because we're not familiar with how to protect a cathedral. So again, he tells you lots of things about how they were living during this period, what they were doing when they were not fighting, and what life was at this period. So this is really for history nerd, but it's a fascinating resources by a very interesting man. Now that we saw places in France, now that we saw documents, authentic pictures and lots of printed documents, and we saw reportage, let's look at fiction, because fiction is a very nice way to immerse yourself in a time period if you're into it. And I'm going to give you a few ideas of French movies you might want to watch, who happen to be in French as well about this period. So the oldest one I'm going to mention here is La Chambre des Officiers. La Chambre des Officiers is about wounded soldiers after the First World War, and it comes from a book. So if you're into books, you can read it. If you're more into movies, you can watch it, or you can do both. These are difficult topics, so they're not for children, okay? I'm sure you can imagine, but I just wanted to say it just in case. Au revoir là-haut is the only movie I haven't seen from this list because my schedule had been hectic recently, so I just didn't have the time to sit down and watch it, but I absolutely want to do it, and it's been very, very praised by critics, and I really want to see it. It comes from a book as well, so you can read it, you can watch it, you can do both. I think it's more imaginative in terms of, it's more like dreams and fiction and imagination rather than just the facts, but it seems very, very nice. And I've heard so many good things. I absolutely want to see it. It's about les gueules cassées. Les gueules cassées is a name that we gave to people who had the broken faces. You remember, like, the wounds that are very, very typical to this war, where people lost some part of their faces because of horrible wounds. This is how we call them. That's les gueules cassées. It's broken faces, literally. Un long dimanche de fiançailles is the movie you might have seen because it was with Audrey Tautou, right after Amélie Poulain, and it's about a woman who wants to find her fiancé, who everybody says he's dead, and she doesn't think so, and she goes and tries to find him. It comes from a book as well. I remember my grandmother had read the book, and she was always saying, but the movie is not like the book. Yes. So I'm very fond of this movie because of this memory. So again, you can read the book, watch the movie. And the last one is that's something that had been very famous in Europe because it was a production from France, Germany, UK, Belgium, and Romania. It's Joyeux Noël. Joyeux Noël literally translates into Merry Christmas. And it's a movie about Christmas 1913 when the soldiers decided to stop fighting and have a peaceful Christmas instead. They played football, they sang together, they ate together, and it seemed to have been something that history wanted to erase because they wanted fighters to fight instead of being together and thinking, why should I kill you? So it's a movie shot in different languages, so you have people speaking French, English, German in there, and it's very interesting, and I like the fact that it was a production from several countries in Europe. There's one last resource I wanted to tell you about that is impossible to find because they don't sell it anymore. But it's very close to my heart because of different things I'm going to tell you about. It's a game, it's a board game. I'm a very big fan of board games, I play a lot. It's one called Les Poilus. Les Poilus is the name of the soldiers that we gave them during this war because it means a hairy man. And because they couldn't shave and everything, that's the name. And again, just like les gueules cassées, it's not a very positive, but it translates the sadness of this period. So Les Poilus is really the name of the soldiers during this time. And this happens to be a board game that's a co-op board game, if you happen to find it in France. And you have to try to survive as a team. So you're not shooting anyone, you're not trying to kill anyone, you're just trying to keep your spirits up because that's very important in the game. So you don't give up because the weather is awful, the conditions are awful, the situation is awful, and you just try to survive together. So you have a team and no one is allowed to survive alone, you have to stick together. And the thing about this game that is very important to me and to people who own it and people who bought it as well, is that the man who drew that is Tignou, and Tignou was one of the journalists of Charlie Hebdo, one of those who died in the attack. And the game came after the attack, and lots of people bought it for many, many reasons, but that was one of them. So that was one of his last projects, and I remember that one of the board game websites where I go to a lot was supposed to interview him, and he was killed right before. So it's a fantastic game with very beautiful illustrations on a very sad topic. We were killed many, many times. We lost many, many times, but it's an original concept. And if you're into board games, only if you're into board games, check it out. If you're not, there are lots of other resources for you to check. But it's an original game that is very well thought, and it's not a war game as in you have to kill people, you have to stick together as a team and make it out. Et toi, now that we've saw together lots of resources in French, which one would you like to see? So tell me in the comments below. Qu'est-ce que tu vas explorer après cet épisode et pourquoi? Qu'est-ce que tu vas explorer après cet épisode et pourquoi? I'm going to put that here. So for example, you can say, je vais regarder C'est pas sorcier car c'est une émission que j'aime beaucoup. Je vais regarder C'est pas sorcier car c'est une émission que j'aime beaucoup. So just pick one, whether you're into reportage, whether you're into documents or places, if you're lucky enough to be able to visit them. Just let me know in the comments. It's a fantastic way for you to practice your French. And also if you have recommendations of French resources on this period of time, let me know in the comments so we can all share. The comment area is a fantastic way for students to share their tips and resources. As usual, if you liked this episode, share it with your friends. They will love it. You can do it by email, by forwarding my weekly email, or by telling them on Facebook, or putting a thumbs up on YouTube, subscribing to the channel. It's up to you. There are many, many ways. That's the best way to support my work on Comme une Française, all the free lessons I give every Tuesday. If you want more spoken French, subscribe on commeunefrancaise.com to get my 10-day everyday French crash course. It's a free 10-day course to double your Frenchness in just 10 days. It's free. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe anytime, but students tend to like it. I wish you a fantastic day. I hope you will like the resources I mentioned and will go and explore them. I wish you a lovely day, or a good night, or maybe a good afternoon, and I will see you next time. Allez, salut!